John Girani is saying that the Milwaukee Bucks are in the process of working through a deal with Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is the leader to get the job. If everything goes to plan, the Bucks are hiring Doc Rivers, which is funny because I interviewed Marcin Gortat and he said he doesn't trust Doc Rivers. And I just think it's interesting because I've heard a lot of people say certain stuff about Doc, but they want a player's coach. I guess Austin Rivers is going to have a job in the NBA now. Either way, my jokes aside, guys, I want to hear if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan. What do you guys think of this hiring? Do you guys like it? Look, first off, what is Doc going to bring? He's going to bring, a player coach. He's going to be a guy that all the vets on this team are going to really like. And the interesting part about all of this is not his coaching staff. Now, Joe Prunty is better friends with everybody on this coaching staff, so it's a little different than what we've seen in the past where David Blatt and I believe Jack McKinney with the Lakers were both fired, and they were replaced by intern coaches who went on to win a NBA Finals. While when you look at this situation, it's a little different because at this point, Doc Rivers, what is his coaching philosophy? Doc Rivers as a coach, his philosophy has definitely changed. He's a guy who still rides off the success of the Celtics, and he's a guy that he has a lot of Docisms. And his coaching style is he's a guy who tries to have a good team culture, emphasizing on teamwork and defense and letting his players, be the ones who are doing everything. And the problem with, something that we've learned with Doc Rivers is he hasn't necessarily always been the most effective, coach. Like, he's had shortcomings. And part of that reason is because of his lack of innovation. He's not the most creative play caller. He's not the most creative defensive scheme coach. So what ends up happening is when we get into situations like the playoffs where you get guys like Nick Nurse or even, Mark Daignault, back in the day, Brad Stevens, but Joe Mazzulla is a good play drawer up. Guys who are going to draw up stuff you haven't seen at all on tape, and they're going to run plays that you've never seen before. Doc doesn't have a great time adjusting. He's just going to play his team the same way and hopefully just beat you with that. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? I think the big thing with when you do that is, I think you're limiting yourself to being easily exposed. So the Milwaukee Bucks are hiring Doc Rivers as their new head coach is, I think, an interesting one. I don't think it's the wrong. Do I think there's other coaches out there that maybe, James, they're all under contract. All the good coaches are under contract. The only coach really available is Doc Rivers, unless you want Nate McMillan. And that's the reason. So shout out Chomp Girani for the nude. So there's a little bit more to this video than we know. So basically what we're hearing is the reason why Mr. Adrian Griffin was fired was because Damian Lillard reportedly had a hard time adjusting to Milwaukee's scheme, while Adrian Griffin demeaned Terry Stotts, who was supposed to implement that for them. And Milwaukee Bucks choice to fire first-year head coach was hardly an overnight decision. This was something that had played out over the last few months due to their underwhelming play. They looked like a team that was going to be a second-round exit. Their once elite defense had severely declined, and they had been, Damian Lillard and Giannis weren't looking as good. Okay, as far back as the in-season tournament in December when they lost to the Pacers in Las Vegas, the internal skepticism regarding Griffin's ability to lead this group were starting to sign. And league sources are saying, like I said earlier, that Doc Rivers, who signed on as an ESPN analyst, is been serving as an informal consultant to Griffin as soon as he got there. And now Rivers is a serious leader for that now vacant spot. They're talking contract. And the Bucks have started discussions with Rivers to become the new head coach, and he's going to be hired. And if he doesn't, Kenny Atkinson, who came up short to Griffin in the coaching search, is a candidate for the job as well if they aren't able to secure a deal with Rivers. And the trouble began, after a little while. So Stotts, you remember, left. So with Stotts out the picture, the Suns and the Bucks, are still looking for an identity offensively. And I think the biggest problem here, you're seeing that according to the team sources, the issues plaguing Griffin early tenured range from putting together strong schemes on both ends of the floor for the Bucks to fulfill their championship potential to successfully communicating his vision to his players for them to execute it on the floor. basically, bottom line, given the high stakes that the Bucks are in, championship or bust, Griffin's ability to lead this team became too big of a question to ignore. So all season long, the Bucks have struggled on the defensive end of the floor, and after being one of the league's top defenses for 5 straight years under Budenholzer, they're now ranked 22nd in defensive rating, allowing 116.8 points per 100 possessions. Regarding the team's defense, you just kind of reached the boiling point, and we saw it the other day. So it makes sense that they would go out and do this. So with the newest member of the ownership, Jimmy Haslam, he's been a guy who also was questioning him. So it's a perfect time to let Lillard loose, let him go off. And overall, the Bucks performed well on offense, but you have a bunch of good players. So basically the whole thing is, Damian Lillard didn't like him. Lopez's responsibilities were changed. And Antetokounmpo, so changing Lopez's responsibility helped the Bucks stabilize themselves defensively after a rough start. But, Griffin and his staff didn't find a way to scheme around their personnel issues, and now they hire Doc Rivers.